Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Glad that you all are here. Thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Ronnie Nolan. I serve as the Executive Director of the Kentucky Educational Collaborative for State Agency Children. We are proud to partner with all of you in your school districts in ensuring that children and youth who are in the care and custody of the Commonwealth have an equitable educational experience as much as possible in these trying times. So I'm glad that you all are with us today as we're going to talk about some important information and then give you all an opportunity as well to share with us and to engage in conversation and questions if you have those as we move through the agenda this morning. Again, this is our spring SACSAA meeting. We made a decision several years ago that we would implement a virtual spring SACSAA meeting. This happened way before COVID impacted all of our lives and moved a lot of things online. But it really worked for us, I think, for a long time and continues, I think, to work in this way, where on most days you're able to be in your schools and back with your students rather than spending a day traveling for this. So, but today I know is a little bit unusual, at least for some of you who are on our meeting. Many school districts across Kentucky are out of school today, either directly out for what a severe weather day or a snow day with no snow, but rain and winds, or you're on an NTI day in your district. And so I know many of you possibly were off today. And so I appreciate you being here with us during this. Certainly part of the reason that we have planned this as a spring meeting for many years is because of adverse weather and the impacts that has on travel and meetings in person. And so we wanted to make sure that we did not have to reschedule meetings like this because we know how difficult that could be with many of your schedules. So we appreciate you being here, especially those who otherwise would be out today. So thank you for joining us. We're excited to have a conversation today about a lot of important information that is related to state agency children. And if you have questions as we move through our agenda this morning, we'd love you to feel free to pop in and ask those questions, or if you feel more comfortable putting those in the chat, you can put those in the chat function, and we have staff who are with us who will make sure to monitor that. And then if I miss it, they'll make sure that we circle back to it before we end our meeting or as it comes up. So those staff who are on the call, if you all can make sure that we are doing that as well, I appreciate the accountability so we know what we're doing as well, and we value everybody's time. So again, thank you for being here. We are going to go ahead and get started. We have a long agenda. Hopefully, we're going to move through that fairly quickly. We do have yesterday, Cindy held in our office, sent out and shared with you a link to all of the documents for this through our Google Drive. So you should be able to click on that link that was sent in the email yesterday or in the confirmation email that you received about the meeting, and you'll be able to see a lot of the documents that we're going to be talking about today. That will be available even after this meeting, so you can continue to go back and circle back to those documents if you need to, specifically around budget issues or special allocation of funds or other things that we talk about, so you'll have access to that as well. Before we get moving any further, I do want to take just an opportunity to thank and recognize our SACSAA president, which is Heather Moss from Jefferson County Public Schools. And Heather, and then our new president-elect, Jeremy Cameron from Owensboro Treatment Center over in Owensboro, who we're really excited about. Day treatment. Glad that you're here as well. Heather, do you have comments that you'd like to share this morning before we get started?
No, I'm just glad everyone can be here. You can tell I still have the Ohio Valley gunk going on. This is like we're going from 40 to 70 to it's just nuts. So yeah, we woke up with an unexpected off day today, snow day in Jefferson County, and that doesn't happen very often. So looks like we're all from home today. Hopefully no one gets bad weather and everyone stays safe. Some of you all might actually be at school. We all got the telecommute. But other than that, like if there's anything you ever need, Jeremy and I we'll represent you on the IAG. So please reach out and let us know if there's anything that you like our support with.
Thanks, Heather. That's a good point as well. I appreciate that. Just a reminder that we do have an interagency advisory group that is a legislatively created group that oversees our work, that is made up of members from the Kentucky Department of Education, the Kentucky Department for Behavioral Health, Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, as well as Community-Based Services and the Department of Juvenile Justice. We do have a superintendent representative on that board as well, Doug Bennett from Laurel County. And then we have 2 school administrators. That is Heather Moss, who serves as the president of SACSAA, and then Jeremy Cameron, the president-elect. So we have a good representation of folks who are on there who are able to talk about a comprehensive kind of view of state agency children and their needs. And we really try to look at a holistic approach. And that sometimes is difficult, I think, for us to be able to navigate that, because we do have a lot of competing personalities and priorities within that. But we try our best to navigate and bring those folks together so that we can all be on the same page when it comes to providing the best services we possibly can for children and youth who are in the care or custody of the Commonwealth. So thank you, Heather and Jeremy, for both serving on that group and for representing our school administrators across the state as we have discussions about policies and impacts related to educational services, but also other services for our students. We know that all of those things are connected. There is no education without treatment. There's no treatment without education. There's no any of that without all of the supports that our partnering agencies provide for us. And so we think it's critical that we all work together to make sure that we're doing what we need to. And sometimes, as you all know and have been witness to over the last year, that works really well sometimes. And other times we need a lot of support in that process, not just for our juvenile justice facilities, which many of you have seen not only in the news, but firsthand, but also in our other programs that are DCBS or behavioral health related, which are also experiencing many of the same things that our juvenile facilities are experiencing, but without the fanfare. So we appreciate all of the work that all of you are doing to continue offering exceptional educational services to our students. I can't think of a more critical time where this is needed, where we really have to be flexible and to work our absolute hardest and most creative ways to make sure that our students still get quality services in an environment that sometimes is not as supportive as we need it to be to do that. So we appreciate all of you and your hard work in doing that. And we know that it is not a job that is easy, and it certainly has not been easy over the last year. So I appreciate you hanging in there, those of you who are hanging in, and that we will continue to do that as we move forward. So again, thank you guys very much for that. This morning, also, we have with us Jeremy. I'm going to give you an opportunity as well. If you want to bring regards from SACSAA, but also an opportunity for you to provide us with an update on the KASA, the Kentucky Association of School Administrators. Jeremy is a representative on their board and has been working with them extensively over the last couple of years now. And so we'll give him an opportunity this morning to also share with us. And then also, before he does that, just to let you guys know, we've had even through all of the ups and downs of this last year, we've had a pretty amazing year in education for state agency children. Jeremy was recognized by KASA this past year as the School Administrator of the Year in Kentucky, which is an exceptional recognition, I think, for a principal in one of our programs that serves a very specialized population. We're really excited about that. We also had in our programs this year, the Support Staff Person of the Year was also in one of our programs. And we also had the Superintendent of the Year, who is one of our superintendents of our programs as well. So we're really excited about the great work that is taking place, even under some circumstances that are not always the most conducive for our work. So congratulations to all of you. And Jeremy, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Ronnie. That's a great filter you have on, by the way.
I don't have a filter. I look like this.
Me too. Me too. Can you hear okay? I'm trying to do this with my aftershocks. Okay. Good to see you guys. I'm like you from home. I have my best companion. If I could work like this every day and have this dog kind of sit next to me, I think life would be a lot easier. KSA continues to work with the Executive Policy Council and the board to advocate during this legislative session. It's not been too crazy, but it's definitely gonna bring, I feel like, an impact from a KESA before. And I think, am I sharing later about the law update stuff or now?
You can do now if you feel comfortable, and we can move into that if you don't cover any of the ones that.
Sure. I'll let you go first, Ronnie, and that way we don't, because you already have an agenda. KSA Leadership Institute, the 26th, 27th, and 28th, about midday 28th of July. It's the week after KEXAC. It is up for registration now. It is a very, very high quality. One of the keynotes this year will be the Major League pitcher Tim Morris that came in. There's always a whole plethora of really good sessions. I hope you'll join us. It'd be nice to see a lot of our principals there. I always see a good chunk of us, but it would be nice to see that. Excited about also having KEXAC the week before. So that's neat to be back in person. But if you are not a member of KSA, just to give you an idea of some of the things that would be awesome, the be part of that is the regular updates on legislation that could impact your school and stuff that likely will, as well as giving us a grounds for advocating for laws that will actually help our programs. That was one of the main things that was able to do last year. They have lobbyists that help me and lawyers that help me walk through the process of how to get a law into, and of course with Ronnie's assistance as well, how to get it into my representative, and then how to lobby for it, and how to, the whole kind of 9 yards of, what political potholes are there. So if you have stuff that you feel like, man, if this regulation wasn't this way, or this policy wasn't this way, or this law wasn't this way, I think I could help our kids better. Definitely, bring it to me. Sarah Vivian was actually the one that brought up from the academy in Frankfurt the need because of having some kids eligible and some kids not for the GED. And actually the Franklin County schools have run with it this year at the Fayette Detention Center and at the academy, and have a whole heck of a lot of awesome GED passes this year, like probably a record for KEXAC programs. So it's pretty neat. I'm also able to work with Congressman Guthrie's office, met with them through this, and it kind of gives you a platform. KSA definitely gives you a platform to work with that, to kind of improve our cohort graduation rate so that GEDs can count toward that. So we're working on that right now. And it's just a good place to meet. The Leadership Challenge is something I still use to this day. So if you're interested in KSA and you don't know anything about it, or would like to learn more about it, it's discounted right now. Premier membership comes with your liability insurance, $1 million liability insurance, and actually like $3,000 to $5,000 of legal assistance, as well as a lawyer to kind of vet your problem with. Wayne Young, and he'll say, okay, yeah, I think you need a lawyer. So he'll disperse funds and help you connect with an educational lawyer in your area if you ever need it. And, hopefully you never will, knock on wood, I never have yet, but if that's ever the case, it's nice to have that backup.
And then Jeremy, isn't KSA having their law and finance in Lexington in March? I think that
They are, and it looks really, really good. And if you're a DJJ program, Lachina has she had 2 spots as of yesterday. You could probably still get on if you wanted to go and check that out. The law really looks good. If it wasn't such a crazy March for my program, I would probably win on that one.
And just another plug, they can take your fees right out of your check. So
Yep.
like Mine just
nice.
gets deducted automatically. I don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think I'm like $11 a paycheck, something like it's a lot cheaper than KEA. And it's about, I don't know, just over $400 a year, maybe for me. It's all based off a percentage of what your salary is.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Heather, also for adding into that. Just to give kind of an additional context to what Jeremy was talking about with the GED issue, you remember last year, Jeremy and Sarah Vivian really led an effort to have the state law changed to allow students who are in alternative education settings to be able to take the GED and be enrolled in a GED program, a prep program, simultaneously alongside their diploma track program. And it changed significantly how we do the GED in Kentucky and allow students who earn a GED to be able to then withdraw from school, whereas before that, a student who earned a GED still was required to continue going to school toward a diploma track. So this significantly changed that. What it didn't do, and what we were aware of at the time and knew would happen, is that it did not impact the accountability issues that districts have related to graduation rates with students. So if a student earned a GED and decided to withdraw from school, then essentially that was a negative mark on the school district and their graduation rate. And that is all driven by federal law. That is not a state law. That is not something we could address in state regulation or state statute. And so even though we had it passed in Kentucky that allowed that, the federal government still for their accountability and graduation rate calculations still count those students as a dropout. And what Jeremy is working on now and has been involved in conversations with our federal delegation is about changing and looking at changing that federal tabulation for graduation rates so that when we say a student who earns a high school equivalency, and we call it a high school equivalency diploma, which means it is equal to a high school diploma. If we say that that's what it is, then it should count in that same way. But that is a federal issue that they are working on now. And so we're really excited about that opportunity as well, and hope that they have additional success to the level of success that they had here in Kentucky with our legislature as well. So thank you for your work on that. And as Jeremy said, if there are other issues that you think need either state or federal legislative impacts or changes, please let us know, either Jeremy through KASA or us through our office. We work on a lot of legislation as well, primarily in feedback and providing additional guidance and support to legislators who may have particular issues related to our population. And we really try not to get involved in bigger issues that are related to education. Our kind of wheelhouse is state agency children, and that's where we focus our attention. KASA, on the other hand, is much more of an umbrella agency that impacts that and that works with just about every legislative issue that comes through related to education, but not just education. It could be just about anything. As we know, everything circles back and ties to education in some way in this state, including things like the bourbon barrel tax, which is a big issue that is taking place right now, which people are like, oh, bourbon barrel tax, what does that have to do with us? But we all know for those districts that have bourbon barrel storage facilities that they currently pay taxes on those, and there is currently legislation moving that will exempt them from those taxes, which will reduce the amount of money that local school districts receive in tax dollars. So it does, everything is kind of related, even when we don't know necessarily or see the direct link. So their work is obviously critical in that. And we have a lot of other partners who are also working on those issues. Again, we are at, as you all know now, the Kentucky School Boards Association, and they are very actively engaged in legislative review and processes. And so that is one of the things that we've constantly been working on as well. So we appreciate all of those partnerships and making sure that our students get the services that they need and deserve. So thank you all for that as well. As we move through the agenda, I'm going to I'll talk about, and then Jeremy, you probably will want to talk about from the KSA perspective, some legislation, but I just really want to talk about just two. And those are the two primary ones I'm going to focus on. There are lots of bills that are moving, and I hope that all of you are following the legislative session Jeremy said maybe it hasn't been that crazy yet. I think that depends on your perspective. It's been pretty crazy. It's been pretty crazy for me. So we'll see how that goes. But two in particular that I want to draw your attention to and just make sure that you're aware of, because I think it impacts about half of our programs directly and then other programs indirectly. And that is, the first one is House Bill 3, and that is a House bill that is sponsored by Representative Bratcher out of Jefferson County, and it is related specifically to juvenile justice. It is a comprehensive response to what they see as needs within the juvenile justice system. It has been formed over the last several months through conversations not just with the legislature, but also with community stakeholders and also with the Department of Juvenile Justice, the Office of the Cabinet for Justice and Safety, as well as the governor's office. There have been lots of discussion around juvenile justice specific issues in the Commonwealth, as I'm sure all of you have seen in the news, that many of you have, I'm sure, have been sharing by email and text message and everything else over the last year. So I know that you're aware of everything that is going on, and this is kind of the first response bill to that. It was just passed out of the House, and so one of the things that is important in this, initially, the bill was a much smaller bill. It was presented last year by Representative Bratcher. It had some pretty simple, I would say simple, but also dramatic changes related to juvenile justice, and then it morphed into a much larger bill. So I'll just briefly touch on some of the smaller things that were previously in the bill. And those, the bill seeks to add some accountability for parents of students who are juvenile justice involved or justice involved, including being able to summon parents to court if a student is failing or a juvenile is failing to meet the requirements of a diversion plan or not meeting the goals within their juvenile justice treatment plan, that parents can, according to this bill, be held accountable in a court of law for that, for their juvenile's inability, if it is related to the parent not being participatory in that process. So they will outline all of that within the administrative office of the courts about what that looks like, but this does expand that to have some accountability for parents of juveniles who are not participating in their own treatment process. The other thing that it does is it does mandatory holding times for students who are taken into custody for different offenses, and it has a minimum 48-hour holding time for students into a juvenile detention center, which is a significant impact. Currently, the administrative office of the courts with judges can make a determination at the initial restraint or when a student is initially retained to either release that student back to their parent into the community, or that they can make some judgment about what that can look like. This bill would change that and would have a minimum 48-hour required hold for those students, which is a significant change and will have impact, obviously, on the numbers of students who are being placed into our juvenile detention centers across the state. So that's something that's also in the bill. Then it moved into and morphed into a much larger conversation after the start of the legislative session, when legislators started having conversations with the Department of Juvenile Justice and the Justice Cabinet about what the needs are within juvenile justice so that we can address some of the issues that have been so widely reported in the news over the last several months. This bill has a fiscal note now attached to it, and in a non-budget year, that is a significant move for the legislature. It is not, again, a budget year, and so typically funds are not allocated during a non-budget year, but this year they are. We anticipate they will be. This bill allocates approximately $39 million in new funds to the Department of Juvenile Justice to address some of the issues that we have talked about. First of all, they have some staffing issues, and so this money is geared toward that. Let me grab my note here real quick, and I'll just share with you that part of this is going to be related to staffing. They have $9.6 million included in this bill to look at DJJ staffing needs. we all know that over the last several months, the Department of Juvenile Justice and the executive branch under the leadership of Governor Beshear has moved salaries for starting salaries for youth care workers within DJJ facilities to a minimum of $50,000 per year. That is a significant increase for them. And that is an effort to recruit and retain those juvenile justice youth workers, which has been part of the issue that we've been experiencing across the Commonwealth. That also then impacted every single tier. As you all know who work in school districts, if the minimum is raised and you all work on tiers and number of years of involvement, everybody that's a step above that, theirs is also increased all the way up the line. And so they have an additional $9.6 million in next year's budget starting on July 1 to address those issues as well. They also included $17.1 million for a new juvenile justice detention center in downtown Louisville. Prior to 2019, that juvenile justice facility was operated by the local government in Jefferson County. And now under this agreement in this bill, that entire facility will be transferred to the state. Not just the physical building, but also all of the responsibility for managing and directing that facility will now become under the operation of the Department of Juvenile Justice. So that's $17.1 million to renovate that building and to make sure that it is an adequate facility for juvenile offenders to be housed in. There's also $2 million each year budgeted in that 23-24 for operational expenses of just staffing that building. That's in addition to the $9.6 million for staffing across the state. There's an additional $5.8 million included in that budget for transportation because, as you all know, currently we have an all-girls facility that is located in Northern Kentucky. And so we understand, and I think the state is responding to that we have female juvenile offenders who are from places like Fulton and Pike County and Whitley County and others around the state that are kind of in the far reaches of the state from Northern Kentucky. And so they have had to transport those girls back and forth for court hearings and other things. And so there's additional costs for that as well. And then beyond that, there's an additional $4.5 million included for renovations of the other juvenile justice facilities across the state. Many of you who are in juvenile detention centers, and that's only for detention centers. All of this is related to detention centers only. So youth development centers and others are not part of this process. This is specifically related to the building facilities to those, so they can get those up to where they need to be able to house students. And we have heard, and I'm sure you have heard, many instances where our facilities that are now anywhere from 22 to 25 years old are not equipped to handle the kinds of students that we're seeing now in these facilities. And so it's a retrofit to upgrade all of those as well. So again, that's $39 million that's going to be allocated for those. And we expect that will move pretty quickly through the Senate as well. It has to move pretty quickly, by the way, because we don't have much time left. I think today, when I'm looking at my calendar, today is day 20 of a 30-day session. And so 2 of those days are reserved for veto overrides after the session. So really, they have about 8 more days of their work to be able to address a large number of issues that they are working on. So that's the first bill and a pretty comprehensive response. On the Senate side, Senator Danny Carroll from McCracken County is the sponsor of House Bill 162, which is a kind of a partner bill to House Bill 3. Again, that's Senate Bill 162. It also looks at a lot of issues related to juvenile justice. Senator Carroll was the co-chair, along with Representative Bratcher, of a special work team made up of legislators that have been meeting for the last, probably about the last month at this point. They met during the interim break in January. They interviewed frontline workers, other folks in DJJ detention centers across the Commonwealth, often many of those behind closed doors and off the record, which formed their plan for how to address some of the things that are taking place. And so this bill does a lot of things as well. One of the very first things that it does is it creates a centralized tracking system within the Department of Juvenile Justice. One of the things that was determined through this process is that currently there is not a central tracking system that is designated to identify where a student is at any given point in the state. So and I'm not saying that there's not records. Obviously, everybody keeps records. If you call somebody at DJJ and said, hey, where is so-and-so student? They certainly would be able to tell you where that student is by going to that individual student's tracking system and kind of learning where they are. But this is a much more comprehensive data system that will be put into place so that there's immediate information that is transferred and available where students are within the system. It also changes and does a reorg of the Department of Juvenile Justice. So within the Department of Juvenile Justice, it creates some new positions and changes where other folks report and to whom they report. And one of the biggest ones is that there will be one centralized supervisor over the detention centers who will supervise each of the detention centers. They will report directly to that one person, and that one person will report directly to the commissioner of the Department of Juvenile Justice. So that there is not I guess, to ensure that there is a clear communication and clear chain of responsibility for what is taking place. They also are providing those youth workers, who I think are now going to be called youth correctional officers, with defensive materials in their facilities. Those defensive materials can include anything from mace to shields and those kinds of things, not firearms at this time. But those would be available to those folks as well. It would also create a trauma response team for each facility so that if there are any additional outbursts or anything that is taking place, riots or other things that happen in a facility, there's a trained response team that in that facility, in that district where that program is located, that will be able to go in and immediately address that. It goes further into saying that they have to have contracts with the local law enforcement to be able to do emergency response, that there's mental health facilities and mental health services that must be provided, additional contracts that must be entered into with Our Lady of Peace or Peace Hospital in Jefferson County that will require a mental health DJJ facility to be housed there for a small number of students. And then it moves further to allocate that there must be $38 million in additional funds that are allocated through this bill to be able to pay for all of those things, in addition to 146 new juvenile youth workers in the facilities. So there is a recruitment effort underway to hire an additional 146, which has been identified as the number needed to be able to appropriately and adequately respond to the needs of students who are in those facilities at this time. Those are the two biggest bills, I think, that relate specifically to our work. There are lots of others, as I said, and Jeremy may want to talk about those. But if you have any questions about any of those bills, please let us know. Obviously, we knew about House Bill 3, which was moving pretty quickly, and so that was going to go through. But House Bill 162, we knew would be emerging as part of that work group. So it has some additional things in it that were not kind of in the initial conversation. But hopefully those will be able to address some of the issues that are taking place. Jeremy, you'll probably want to talk about this too, but I just got a message over here to talk a little bit about House Bill 538, which is the school discipline bill. And the impact on alternative programs for that. This is a bill that will be, it is already moving through the House. And so we already know that this is going to happen. And it may look a little bit different, but this bill is related to school discipline for students. It is something that legislators have heard a lot about. In addition to kind of legislative feelings, I think KASA and some other groups have been working over the last year in what they are calling, I think, and this is a loose term for it, and Jeremy may know, but essentially it is a teacher retention program of how do we retain quality teachers in our programs and address some of the issues that are related to our teacher shortages that are taking place across Kentucky. And one of the things that emerged from that as a primary issue for when teachers report they leave the profession, it is largely due to student discipline and a lack of student discipline, quite frankly, or perceived lack within our schools. And so this bill really addresses that and gives some authority, not just to the teacher in a classroom, but also to the principal in that building about how to remove students from a school setting, from a classroom setting where they are being disruptive. One of the things, I think it was yesterday in committee when this bill was being heard, one of the conversations, it may have been the day before, I apologize, they're kind of all running together. But there was lots of talk from folks about saying, we understand the need to ensure that every student has an appropriate free and public education, right? But when we have a student who is disruptive in a classroom and there are one student in a classroom of 25 or one student in a classroom of 30 who's being disruptive, there really is a sense and a feeling that the other 29 kids who are in that classroom are missing educational opportunities because of the one kid's disruption. And this bill really moves to allow that teacher to have that student removed from their classroom and not brought back to that classroom for that day. You all know in traditional educational settings that a teacher oftentimes will say, you need to get out of my office and go to the principal's office. And sometimes that student is right back in that classroom before teaching has even resumed. And this would not allow that to happen. The principal would have to find an alternative placement for that day. After 3 of those instances happening in a classroom, the principal would not be able to have that student back in that classroom at all and would have to make alternate plans, including involuntary placement in a different educational setting, which may include alternative schools like some of our day treatment programs, or into a virtual school option, whether they want to be involved or enrolled in a virtual school option or not. So this could have significant impact on some of our programs, specifically day treatment programs that are blended, where you have district referred kids in those facilities alongside state agency children. And so I'll just be honest, that bill is going to pass. One of the important things that they talked about and that Justin brought up is that how does this impact special education students? They were very clear in the bill that this does not impact any federal regulation that's related to students with an IEP. And so all of those same things will still be in place. So really, this is primarily for those students who don't have an IEP. The bill, again, is House Bill 538, which is a bill that is moving fairly quickly again. So, Jeremy, do you have other thoughts to add related to that or other bills that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's the main one that I think's moving from Representative Truitt right now. He's a school principal. There is the language was always in. It's basically modifying prior language where it takes a minimum approach to expulsion. It's at least 12 months in this bill, so that it's not like you can expel somebody for the rest of the semester. No, it would be 12 months. And then at the end of that 12 months, if the school board chooses to do a review, they can actually extend the expulsion to longer if they choose to, up to another 12 months. So that's a little concerning for me when you start talking about our kids, because there's a lot of kids that eventually will end up in our alternative programs that that would have a pretty severe impact. It does make sure that it lays out that school districts will still have to provide an education, but I mean, with all the virtual programs that have come out of COVID, I can kind of see virtual programs becoming a little bit of a dumping ground if we're not careful.
I agree with that. I think that's definitely a part of it. You all probably have read and saw there was a story that really this emerged, the really impetus for this and the push for this really emerged. There was a recent story that was, I think, on Good Morning America related to a school district in Northern Kentucky where a student last year had created what that they identified as a kill list with names of other students in the school. And it was intercepted before anything happened, but that student was then expelled from that school. And then 1 year later, under the current law, they can only be expelled for 12 months, and then that student has to be allowed back into the school district. At that time, the parents, at the end of the 12 months, the parents re-enrolled the student, and the student ended up in classes with the same students who were on the kill list, whose parents were visibly upset and went to the school board and complained. And really what happened is that the school district did not have an option under the current law to do anything other than that. So they had to re-enroll that student in that school because that's the school district where the kid lived, and they did not have access to another alternate placement for that kid. So this bill really kind of got some feet because of that instance and that situation that happened, and moved it forward pretty quickly. We did have several representatives. Again, it's Representative Timmy Truitt, who is the sponsor of that. He is a relatively new representative from Madison, Jackson, and Estill County area. He is an elementary school principal, and so he is sponsoring this bill. We did have Dr. Carrie Ballinger, who is the superintendent of Rockcastle County Schools, who testified on behalf of this bill for superintendents. And then this Kentucky School Boards Association also testified in support of this bill. And so because of those different levels of support, and I think the media attention that this has got, clearly this is going to move in some way as we watch what's happening through the legislative session. So it will have an impact primarily immediately on our day treatment programs, but then eventually probably into our juvenile justice facilities and others as a result of that. So one of the things
absolutely, I think it's the wraparound, Ronnie, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's the wraparound of multiple bills kind of coming together for that, with, like you talked about, the mandatory push to court versus in the past it was like, oh, we'll just divert you again. Well, if you get the push to court, then you're going to have, I think there's about 5 different bills that have layered this whole issue.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll all pass, but I think 538 is the one that has most. It passed with consent out of committee.
And that means, for those of you don't follow, that means everybody voted in favor of it in the committee. Everybody was a yes vote. There were no votes on that bill. And when it's passed in consent, that means it goes on a consent calendar, which means there's not floor debate about the bill. And they vote on all of those bills in one lump sum. So they would say, please, let's bring the consent calendar forward and let's vote on every bill that's on the consent calendar without discussion. So when a bill passes out of committee on consent, the likelihood that it is going to pass on the floor is extremely high because of that. The other thing that it does, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this, and I'm sorry if I did, but it allows a district to involuntarily place students in a virtual program at the end of that expulsion, if that happens. It also would give them the opportunity, even before that, to place a child involuntarily into a virtual program if the district offered one.
Yeah, or alternative education.
Or an alternative program.
It's what I kind of put that. But it also, the hard part about this one for me, the one section, I mean, the rest of it, I think, was going to happen. The Coalition for Sustaining Education in Kentucky, which is a mix of representatives, principals, teachers, superintendents, and we've been meeting to how to retain. They took 9 bullets and basically presented them in front of the ed committee with Representative Tipton. This issue was kind of the biggest that they're, I think, able to address without spending money. Yeah. So and I think it's definitely needed. It gives more teeth back to the disciplinarian. One overreach, and I'll say this is just for me, is it has a line in there where it talks about off-site threats, off-site violence, off-site having, it says will substantially likely impact the classroom environment. So it's very subjective. Like, as a disciplinarian, my view of what will substantially likely impact a classroom based off something that happened outside of school might be way different than yours. So I feel like that one line, and that's the one line I was advocating to change through KSA to maybe make it a little more concrete, but I think it's going to go through like that, and probably intentionally left a little bit ambiguous. But it's troublesome, because you are making subjective decision now in your disciplinary role to decide. And so what if you make that subjective decision in one case and then you don't make the same subjective decision in another case? So you're really going to have to watch, if this goes through, which I think it will, that you're consistent in the way that you're rolling out discipline, and other principals around the state will as well, or else I think we'll find ourselves very liable for kind of a breakup. It does have a lot of specific language about due process, and you know, a lot of this stuff is already in law and we already do it. It's just kind of reiterating, I guess, but also giving minimums to expulsions. Alternative placement is not like, oh, do you want to go to our alternative school? No, you're going to our alternative school, or you're going to homeschool or find something else. I mean, it gives a little more teeth to the board that way. If a kid doesn't clean up their act, for instance, they keep having issues in the community during their expulsion. Well, that 30-day, I look at it as like a probation hearing, honestly. You know, if in 30 days in that 11th month, if the board says, oh, you haven't cleaned up your act, some of the unknowns to me are the SROs going to be able to pull their record and present that to the board. You know, I don't know. You know, I would think that would all be part of the review process, right? So what if I pick up additional charges in the year I'm expelled from school? Well, is that going to cause my expulsion to extend a year as well? Like, so there's just a lot of interesting little things that we'll have to figure out when this goes through.
We don't have enough alternative schools for this.
Yeah,
I'll
you're
say
right.
that.
We don't.
And-
And I think that'll be one of the impacts, is that there will be an
Yeah.
expansion of alternative school offerings.
At the middle school level
Yeah.
too, I think.
Oh, yeah. And does this apply to alternative schools? Because we have teachers who are gonna put kids out, even in alternative schools, and then where are they gonna go? There's not another
All
option.
But
schools.
that's the gray area. That's the gray
Yeah,
area, right? So one of the
exactly.
questions that we ask and that other folks have asked is, okay, you've placed a kid in an alternative school and you think that that's the fix. Well, now you've just really moved the situation to a different facility, right? And so now those teachers in that facility are dealing with things that the traditional school just doesn't want to deal
Yeah.
with anymore. And what happens in that facility when a kid continues to have the same behavior that they got them there? And then the answer to that is that they would then be allowed to put them on, without their consent and without the consent of the parent, onto a virtual school platform, and that they can
Yeah.
indefinitely leave that student in that virtual platform.
And so they just,
Successfully or otherwise.
they just disappear and drop out.
You got it.
That's my fear. I don't see how that's effective for some of our kids.
Well, and the other thing that I didn't see in the bill that I wish they would have, if you're going to spell a kid with services, the services include counseling with mental health that the district already provides. The services include, you know, are they going to check in with the teacher? Do they have a virtual academy that they can actually call and get help when they get stuck on Algebra 2 online? Like, you know.
Well, I think one of the things that we saw in testimony is that every district in their virtual program, every district has a different virtual option, if they have a virtual option, and they all look different. Some of them, like when Superintendent Ballinger testified, hers is that students come in 2 days a week and check in person, and then they have a staff person who is online with them all day. Well, that looks very different than a kid who is simply enrolled in Jefferson East School, for example, and just says, you know, work at your own pace and then let us know if you have questions. Those are very different extremes of the spectrum. And when we have 171 school districts that are all operated independently, you're going to have that wide range of services that happen within that.
Yeah, I think one thing I would advocate for around this, and I've always kind of hoped, is Florida has a statewide virtual program, that it's all the same thing. Any Florida resident can enroll. They're not required to enroll in their local district. I would like, you know, that would be something I would like to advocate, I think, in the future. At least it would be consistent.
Jeremy, did you have other bills?
No, I think that's the main one. I mean, you kind of hit on house school. There's a lot of other things, but nothing that jumps out as much as this at impacting our population. I feel like this will raise our population, just like Heather.
All right. Well, thank you all. If you have questions about any of those bills or others, always feel free to reach out to us and let us know what those are. Again, that last one we talked about, Sherry put over there in the comments, that was House Bill 538 by Representative Timmy Truitt, who is the sponsor of that. The other bills that we talked about were House Bill 3, which is the House bill version of the juvenile justice funding, and then Senate Bill 162, Senator Danny Carroll, which is a Senate version of a juvenile justice specific bill as well. So as we move into the next session, I just want to give you some quick budget updates, and I'm going to share my screen just briefly with you all as I do that, because I want to be able to share with you a little bit about what we're doing. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. I hope that is sharing with you guys. Heather, if you can give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Perfect. So what we have just for you guys is our current administrative budget. I wanted to share that with you and just kind of walk you through that just a little bit as we look at this. And you can see where funds are. And the most important thing I want to share with you down at the bottom, we're about 60.5% of the way moving through our administrative budget for our administrative operation within SACSAA. So we still have quite a bit that's still there that we have to spend throughout this year. Including still we have visits with our program improvement specialists that we're about 50% of the way through those of making sure that we do those visits for this year. This is available again in your Google Docs link so that you can have access to this if you have any questions about it as we move forward, or if you want to spend some time reviewing this a little bit later, you can certainly do that as well. The next thing I wanted to share with you real quick, and Jeremy, if you can give me a thumbs up on if you can see a second quarterly report perfectly. Thank you so much. This is a breakdown of each district and each program name, and then you can see all of the data related to it. I'll go across the first line using Adair as our example here. The Adair school district has the Adair Learning Academy, which is a DJJ program. They currently have a rated capacity of 80, and then you can see their allocation for this year, and then how much money they have been reimbursed so far. If you look at that second line with Beechwood, you can see that they have had first and second quarterly disbursements, and the amount and then percentage that they have been reimbursed so far. So you can see that as we move through here. And then the next thing I wanted to show you is that, let's see, let me go back to that. I don't know why I can't see this second page. Oh, great. There's a problem loading more pages. Great. If you guys are on your attachment, you can look at the next page of that, which will have in it the Google Drive for that. I'm going to try to go out of this and see if I can open it this way and do it. Of course not. But the second page of that shows the total amounts of funds that we have allocated and the amount of funds that we have remaining within that. I'm going to stop sharing that real quick and then just look at it myself on here so that I can kind of see what is going on with it. If it'll open for me without you guys seeing it, and it would not. So you can see on page 2 of your own, if you guys are opening that, the total amount that we have remaining. And then I will share with you real quick our next page, which is our third page, and it's not showing up anymore as an option for me, of course. Let's see.
What are you trying to show, Ronnie?
I'm going to show the projected December 1st per child rate.
Okay, it's up.
So perfect. It should be up there at this point, so you can see that. We sent out on December 1st an updated allocation amount for this coming year. At that time, we projected that the per child rate was going to be at $7,000. You can see now when we look at this, these are the actual numbers we have up until this point in time, which shows if you're looking around in this area, you'll see the projected per child rate next year of $7,259 per child that will be allocated or could be allocated and distributed for this year, for this coming year. And you'll see there where we have our total allocation, which we have $12.5 million. We will hold back some reserve funds. We have our operating budget, and then the total amount that we're going to be distributing to school districts initially, starting on July 1. And then you'll see any remaining funds that we have there as well. Currently, our per child rate for this current school year that we're in is $4,982. So this will be an increase in per child of $2,277 for next year. This is a significant increase for state agency children in your district. But I do want to just caution and make sure everybody on here is aware that this amount is based on the counts that we have so far for this year. We do have one more count that is coming up on March 15th, and then we have an April 1st deadline for new programs to be able to apply as well. And those will definitely impact what this number is, but this is roughly where we think we're going to end up for next year. Again, as we talked about our some of those bills and their impact on our students, just know that this is based on that we have had a lower number of kids this, in the last couple of years due to the pandemic and some other things that we think will change as we move forward, especially when we have House Bill 3, which has a required minimum 48-hour hold. So those kids who previously had been released to their parents or to their home community, those kids will now be retained in our facilities, which will increase our numbers on the DJJ side. And then we also anticipate that could have an impact on our DCBS side as well. So this could be a kind of a banner year for us, and then we'll see what the numbers look like as we move forward once these additional impacts from juvenile justice bills are brought in. So that's kind of where we are with that. Does anybody have any questions about any of the budget items that we shared today or what that looks like? Awesome. One other thing within the budget, and I'm going to ask Sherry Kluski, our Associate Director, to share with you a little information about our special allocation of targeted funds. And so Sherry, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I always get to talk about the fun things and the money, so I'm excited about that. If you will look on your Google Doc form, you will see the actual application. We will also have it posted on the link to it will be SACSAA in the funds page. You can go there to fill out your application. It will actually open up today on March 3rd to let everyone start applying. The deadline will be March 20th, that you have to have all of your documents submitted to us. And then we will review the applications on March 28th. And then you and your program will be notified on March 31st. And again, this is like some of you that have been around for a while. It's the mini grants, or we call it the special allocation of targeted funds. It's an opportunity for you to apply for any of your program's needs. There's 4 categories that will fit into. It's instructional materials, technology, professional development, and supplemental. So ask up to $10,000 and fit that into one of those categories. We've simplified the application. It's only 4 questions, or actually 5 questions, I'm sorry. And 2 of those is your program name and your name. So if we wanted to make it simple, we wanted more people to request the funds. And if you have any questions, you can always email me or call me about it. Again, I just want to make sure that you make note of the dates. It opens today. It will close on March 20th. And then we'll review it and notify you that you have won the funds or not. It's a competitive process, and we look at each one. In the previous years that I've been here at SACSAA, we've had some really good applications, and then we've had some things that we've had to say, okay, well, what is it that they really want with this? So just think of outside the box, think about what will benefit your kids and something that you need, because this is an opportunity to get some extra funds into your program. And if anybody has any questions, just email me or give me a call.
Great. And Sherry, I'm going to share now that we're on here.
Okay.
I think I'm sharing now, if you guys can see this. The second page of that budget document I was going to show you a second ago that's related to this special allocation of funds. So it's the bottom of that page. You can see that we have over here, I hope you guys can see my cursor. So we have our SACSAA allocation this year was 11 million. We had in reserve funds $190,661. We had our operating budget, and then we had unallocated funds of programs that closed mid-year or at the start of the year for an additional 64,766. At the bottom, you can see what we have total funds remaining for this current fiscal year that we're in right now. So sitting in our bank account right now, we have $255,427 that will be distributed through this special allocation of funds process. So as Sherry said, we have an application that's available. There's a link in your chat right now directly to that application so that you can see that. We'll also distribute that through a SACSAA This Week email to you all that will go out shortly from Cindy so that you all can have that as well. But those are the monies that we're looking at. And as you all know, each year, our goal is to zero out the allocation that is provided by the General Assembly. So we're making this available currently of the $255,427. Anything of those remaining funds that are not distributed through the special allocation of targeted funds will be redistributed to districts through an increase in the per child rate in the current fiscal year. So just keep that in mind. Those are the dollars that we're talking about and what we're looking to use as we move forward, so that you guys know we do have funds available. We hope that you will take advantage of this and do something that is impactful for your students. As Sherry said, it's $10,000 per program. So you have some opportunity to be able to do that as we move forward. And I hope that you will click on that link over in your chat section that takes you to that application and that you'll participate in that as well.
And it is already on the website. If anyone wants to go to the SACSAA website, and just remember it's under the funds page.
Perfect. All right. So next thing on here, I just want to talk briefly about our program improvement process and some updates we have related to that. We have been working with Angela and Peggy over the last several months and with our IAG board as well, talking about the need for some additional supports and some specialized supports and interventions in some of our programs. So some of you may be very familiar with a program that's operated by the Department of Education, where they have education recovery specialists who work with local school districts, and they specifically work with programs that need some additional support. And so as we move forward into the next fiscal year, we just wanted to let you all know that we are working to identify our programs that, based on our program improvement site visits, have the highest need for some additional supports. And we will be working over the next year to provide some targeted interventions for those programs to help you all continuously improve services for state agency children. Some of the things that we anticipate doing is providing some additional professional development related to identified areas of growth within those programs as we move forward. We have some mentoring partnerships that we think will be available to those folks as well, so that we can pair them up with other programs that are doing exceptionally well, so that we can learn from those programs as well and share the knowledge that we have moving forward. So that's really important for us, and we want to make sure that you all have those supports as we move forward. Our goal in our entire program improvement process and in everything that we do is to make sure that our kids have the very best services possible. And we know sometimes that means that some of our districts need some additional support, and we want to be able to do that. So we will be identifying those programs in May based on a review of the data that's collected over this current year that we're in. All of our visits will be completed by that time, and we'll be able to review those and identify those programs that we're going to work with on a kind of a very focused support system for the coming year. Any other questions about that? We will, after we meet in May to review those, we'll notify all of those districts that were selected for this. And then we will work with you throughout the next year you and your program improvement specialist with SACSAA, as well as other folks who we may contract with to provide additional supports and trainings to that district. Sherry Kluske, you want to talk about the census update briefly?
Yes, I'm going to see if I can share my screen. We'll see how this goes. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Perfect. And you also, I have a copy of it in the Google link that Cindy sent out in case you can't see it. So one of the things that we do each year is the census report. And I am so thankful to all my programs, all my administrators, for all the hard work that you all do in filling out this census document, sending me the information, and us going back and forth several times, sometimes until we get all the information that we need. It's very beneficial. It's like Ronnie said, we use it for different purposes. So I appreciate so much the effort that you all take in order to fill these out and to get the correct information to us till we can show what our programs actually are doing. This past year, we went from 50 districts and 76 programs to 48 and 74. We had two programs that closed. One was in Butler County and one was in Owensboro Independent. One was a DCBS program and one was a DJJ program. So we lost two programs from 2021 until 2022. Our December 1 count, we're actually up a few numbers. We went from 1,498 to 1,506. We always say that's a double-edged sword. You know, we'd like to not have any kids in our program, but I think our programs provide an excellent service for the kids that need our services. So I'm glad to see that the numbers are up a little. It always concerns me, you know, when the numbers start going down so much about our programs and staffing and all of that. Our 12-month count from December 2nd through December 1st, we actually went up from 6,510 to 8,385. Our special needs numbers also went up from 627 to 645. This does not include the 504 numbers. This is only students with an IEP. The next category, it's talking about the DJJ programs that we have. Like I said before, we lost a DJJ program. So in 2021, we had 40 and now we have 39. Our students in our DJJ went from 514 to 638. Our DCBS programs went from 34 to 33. And our student population in our DCBS programs went from 955 to 839. And it's funny when you start looking at that, is like, it's the historical data. It'll, you know, some years our DJJ programs are going down and some years it's our DCBS programs going down. And many factors go into that, but it's always interesting when you look at that. So our mental health day treatment programs, we only have two in the state. One is located in Jefferson County and one is located in, I want to say Corbin, and I'll probably get that wrong, but that's correct. We have 29 students, and again, they stay consistent in the amount of students that they have. If you look back in 2020, they had 35 and now they have 29. So not a lot of change in theirs. And we will do the census actual report and have that available online probably within the next couple of weeks. I've got it ready for draft for people to review. So they'll be looking at that. And so you can go out on the website and look for that within the next couple of weeks if you're interested in the SACSAA data. Any questions?
Thank you, Sherry. I think just for those of us who are playing along at home and watching on this, one of the interesting things in there, if you look at our special ed population compared to the number of kids that we saw over the last year, I mean, we're looking at a reduction overall in the percentage of that, which is a good thing for us. And what that tells me is that during those years when we had those low numbers, it reflects that the students with the highest level of need were still being placed in our programs. Whereas other kids who could have those services in a less restrictive environment were receiving those somewhere else. So now we're seeing that a little bit differently. So thank you for sharing that as well. If you have questions about any of that, again, the report will be coming out relatively soon, and then you'll see the full data, and we'll do a full breakdown of that for you guys as well. Sherry, do you want to talk a little bit about the student art competition as well?
Okay, again, I get to talk about some fun things. So the art competition, I appreciate you all so much. We had a meeting and talked about what we wanted to do and change some things up. And we felt like having some competitions for our students would be a great thing. So we did a writing contest and we did a poetry contest and had a great response. Some really wonderful submissions from our kids, which we know our kids are very, very talented, especially when it comes to poetry, when it comes to art. So one of the things, our next competition is the art competition. It's our third competition for the school year. If you're looking for information about it on our website, it's at SACSAA, Stay Informed and Art. And you can see some of the information or some of the poetry that the students have submitted. So that's a really good thing. If you've got time today during this day that you're not having class, if some of you are off, go out there and look at some of the poetry that the students. We will be accepting entries from February 13th to April 3rd. And again, we get the information back, we review it by panel, the winners are announced. The categories are elementary, middle, and high school. We did that a little different. So their entries can be drawing, painting, mixed media, photos, digital, art, or 3D. But just send me a picture. Don't send me the actual artwork. We're going to look at the picture of it. You can mail it, email it, whatever's the easiest for you. And then we'll get all those together and start reviewing those. Every student only gets one entry per student. The rules are all listed on the art page, so you can look at that. $50 for the first place winner, so that's a big incentive to participate. $25 for second and third. Any questions about that? Okay, get busy and have your kids filling out those art projects. Thank you.
Sherry, you're up next also with the Outstanding Student and Awards.
Phew.
Moving right on down the agenda.
Moving right on down the agenda. They always give me a hard time because I hate Zoom. I'd rather do in person. I can't be like Ronnie and be so relaxed when I'm doing this. I always talk fast and it's like, oh God, is it working? The outstanding students, we usually only get a couple applications for this. Please, if you've got students doing great things, take the time to nominate the students. We had a student last year and it was such a wonderful experience for me. It was a wonderful experience for her. She received $1,000 and she is going to Western. And we're just so proud of the fact that she did everything she was supposed to do. And the program that she was attending helped her get this money. And we know all of our kids need this money. So take the time. If you have a student that's doing great things, nominate that student. And it doesn't take a long time to do it. I know everybody's really busy, but it just means a lot. I was so impressed with this young lady, and she did a great job in filling out everything for us. So again, it needs to be back to us by April 28th, and it'll be located on the resource page. And like Ronnie said, Cindy will send out all of this that we're talking about today in the SACSAA Weekly.
And it's in your chat link right now. Katie just linked that in there as well. So you can go directly to it if you have questions about it, or if you have folks you'd like to nominate. In addition to that, we do have several outstanding awards that also other outstanding for staff member, teacher of the year, administrator of the year, and community support person of the year. And we're also accepting nominations for those folks as well. So if you have people that you think would be great for those who are doing great work and you would like to help them be recognized for that work, we'd love to do that as well. So please take an opportunity to check out that link. It's over on that resources page that Katie put in your chat. And we'll also have sent that out already, but we'll continue to send that out to you all as well to support those folks. Thank you for all that.
And it's also in the link that's in, said all the documents in.
Perfect. All right, a couple of other things before we move into some other presentations this morning. Just a reminder that on March 15th, our next count for our membership is going to be pulled from the Infinite Campus website. We, as you all know, this year we moved from our process of asking you to submit an ADM report with student information on it. We moved to just generating those reports out of Infinite Campus. And then we pull that information in-house and we send you an email that says, here's what our account shows. Is that reflective of what your account shows? And if it is not, then why? And so we're trying to just make sure that those things match up and hopefully creating less work for you all. But more importantly, I think, or as equally important, is that we don't want student data to be directed through emails or through attachments to documents, things that might disclose students who are within our facilities and then may open that information up to any kind of public record request or other things. So we're pulling that directly out of Infinite Campus and then just asking you to verify that information as we do that. That really is important for us to do that for those reasons, but the data that we pull is only as good as the data that you enter. So that's why we're telling you now. It is now the 3rd. You have 12 days to make sure that all of the student data in Infinite Campus is correct, that you all go through that, make sure that all of your students are in the correct categories, that they are enrolled in the SACSAA tab within your facility, all of those things, because that's where we pull that data. And so if you, over the last 2 collections, if you got emails back and forth from Sherry or Christine in our office that were like, we're showing you have 10 kids and you're like, no, I have 17 kids. Well, that's because you at some point did not enter that data into Infinite Campus. So if that has been an issue, please make sure that as we move forward to this March 15th count, that you do that work on the front end so that the data collection is easier for everybody involved and that it is cleaner data that more accurately reflects the student population and student enrollments of our programs. So just a heads up on that as we do it. The other thing, sorry.
Ronnie, I want to interrupt just real quick.
Sure.
They had sent a message that she's actually from Maryhurst and she's attending U of L now. So she switched colleges, but she's doing wonderful.
That was the 21. That was the 21 winner. The 22 winner is still at Western.
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
We have great ones out there. There's still more.
Yeah.
So yeah, great work. Thank you for sharing that, Karen, as well.
Thanks.
All right. So another update, just notification of new deadlines, or if you have a change in your capacity in your facility, those are due to us by April 1st. We have to have those by April 1st because that's when we do calculations for next year's per child rate, the final one. And we shared with you a few minutes ago that right now it's looking like $7,250-ish. But that again is based on that March 15th count and then any new programs that open or capacities that are changed or modified. And then that has to happen by April 1st so that we can make sure we get those numbers calculated and get that out to you all in enough advance that you can make plans for next year as much as possible. A couple of other things on there. Just a reminder, Jeremy mentioned earlier that the KASA conference is in July. We're really excited that the KECSAC Kentucky Alternative Education Summit is returning to in-person this year for the first time in feels like forever. So that is going to be on July 20th, which is a Thursday, and July 21st, which is a Friday, at the Embassy Suites in Lexington, where we met prior to the pandemic. So we're really excited about that, and we hope that you all will attend that as well, and then share that out with other folks in your district who work in alternative education settings or who are interested in students who are served in alternative education settings. This is a free conference that there is no registration fee for you all to attend it. So we really hope that you will take advantage of it and participate in that as well. The other thing just coming up, the new educators training obviously will take place in August. And then our annual fall SACSAA meeting, which is the follow-up to this meeting, will be on September 8th, 2023. And we will announce a location as we get a little bit closer to that. So go ahead and put that in your calendars for next year as well, September 8th, Friday, September 8th for our fall SACSAA meeting. Any questions about anything that we have covered so far this morning before we move into our next section? Obviously, as you guys are on here, feel free to, we're not going to take a break, but you all obviously are adults. If you need to go and take a break, you do that. But we're going to power right on through in hopes to get us through the program this morning. And so I'm going to ask Peggy Shearer and Angela Austin if they would to share some information with us about our program improvement plan, our documents, and some updates that we have related to that as we move through. Angela and Peggy, the floor is yours.
Good morning. I just wanted to start by talking about the program improvement plan. We appreciate the fact that you all take the time to logically think about and do some needs assessment as to what needs to go into your program improvement plan. And realize that we've tried, as Ronnie's mentioned several other times today, we've tried to make things as simple as possible and realize that that information has come from you all, and we've tried to refine this to make it easier for you and yet be productive and do the right kinds of things for our students, because ultimately the goal that we have for all of us is that our students are getting a comparable education to everyone. Cindy, if you could put up the old document so that they understand exactly what we're talking about. I know sometimes you fill out so many forms, it's like, I don't know, what did that one look like? So this is what the old form looked like. It became sort of cumbersome. It was hard for some people to understand where things went. So we tried to refine it a little bit, make it a little more clean, and moved it on up to a different format. So you can sort of see what it looked like so you know what we're referencing. Okay, then Cindy, if you don't care to do the new version, what it will look like. So we've taken input from a lot of different people and tried to look at what would be easier for you to fill out and yet cover what we need for it to cover as well. Cindy, are you putting up the new version?
Yeah, just a second.
Okay, I'm sorry. Program improvement plan, of course, is our version of trying to think about what is it that you plan to do better next year. And sometimes that doesn't change in terms of what you want to do, but sometimes the way that you do it changes. So you can see that the format looks different. And Cindy, if you'll sort of scroll up so they can sort of see a little bit about, so it'll be a different format, but we're looking for the same information. What are you trying to do to make a better plan for our students? Okay, can you go on up and show the second page too? So you'll have goals, objectives, measure of objectives, the same principle kinds of things that we had talked about earlier. Now, in doing this, we begun to think about what kinds of things we didn't see that we wanted to see in program improvement plans. And as we did that, we thought, hey, if we could do some examples or some further explanations of what exactly we want in that section, then that would be easier for you guys. So we've tried to do that in this sample example. So if you'll put it up, Cindy. So the samples that we've given you are just little shortened versions of what might fit in that. We're not asking you to duplicate those, obviously, in any form or fashion, and we will provide this for you as well. So if you need to go back and look at this later, then you can sort of see what kinds of things are going to go on in the format. So Cindy's cleaned it up. So if you'll pull it back down to the top just a little bit, Cindy. Okay, so Angie, if you want to, I've just blabbered on. If you want to talk about specifics, please, Angie.
Yeah, a lot of times, what we found in the previous plan is there was some redundancy in those different blocks, and I think that made for some confusion. And so, just as we streamlined the documentation process, that's what led to the streamlining of this program improvement plan. Up at the top, of course, you're still going to choose which standard you're going to address in your program improvement plan. And I mean, this one shows choosing just one, but you certainly can choose more than one, but don't overdo, because, you know, the whole point of the program improvement plan is to be very intentional with that from your needs assessment, so that you can really focus on making some great improvements in, you know, an area or two. But you don't have to go in and say, oh, I need to do one for purpose, one for governance. You know, we really want to focus and get the most bang for our buck in being very intentional about those needs and how you're going to how you're going to meet them. And what I see a lot personally, and I think Peggy sees this some too, in our program improvement plans, that first bullet says plans should include at least one measurable academic goal. That seems to be where we get hung up the most, and where we have to go back and talk about things. And many of you all, I know, come from a special education background. And so when you're writing these, think about your SMART goals. Is your goal specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it relevant? And is it time-based? You don't want to set a goal of saying every student in my program, 100% of the students in my program will improve in reading at least 3 grade levels. That's, you know, it's a great goal, but it's not attainable. And, you know, so we really want to make sure that we stick to those goals that are attainable. Now, you don't want to sandbag and say, okay, 100% of our students are going to improve. Okay, that is, we want them to improve, but let's set the bar a little higher. And really, moving on from the goals to the priority and needs, you know, you want to have data to back up what your goal is. You know, we always want you to take the data, you know, do a needs assessment, analyze some data, see where your needs truly lie, and then come up with your goal, or where you think where the data says that, you know, you need to make more improvements for your students. The next section, supporting data for need. Why are students exhibiting the needs they're exhibiting? What data illustrates that? I mean, this is where your pre-assessment is very important. And you also might have be looking at, especially for those blended programs where you have a little more access to some behavioral information. You can look at all of that data to figure out, well, why are our kids where they are? You know, is it truancy? Is it behavior? Is it transiency? Your kids are transient from you know, place to place. So take a look and try to determine what is the reason that the kids have those needs? Because that will help you figure out how best to meet them. So Peggy, you want to go on with the goal?
Yes, that'd be fine. So the two things that she discussed, the priority need and the supporting data, are obviously the beginning parts of your process. You want to know what it is I need to do and why am I actually talking about that. Then you're going to formulate your goal, which addresses what that need is. Now, there's no point in having a goal about students painting pictures if that's not what your need is. So your goal obviously has to match what your need and what your data shows your need is. And so we've tried to give you a couple of examples here of things that you could include as a goal. As Angie said, they do need to be SMART goals. So they need to have a time frame. They need to have a specific goal that you're meeting. And the reason we include the time frame is because many of you have students that are short-termers. And if you don't include a time frame, then your statistics are all out of wacky. So for students who are enrolled for at least 90 days, and this is a very ambiguous number depending on what your program has and what they can use, but think about what is actually measurable for the students that you include in your program. And then that we are aiming for 85% of these students to accomplish a 0.5 grade level growth in reading skills on intermittent or post assessments. So know that you've got something that you can measure and that it's reasonable for you to have and that it's doable in terms of the time frame that you've suggested. So that's the main part of what we're looking for is the goal, because that's the main objective that you are trying to reach. What goal are you doing? And then the next thing is objectives for reaching that goal. How are you going to go about that? And again, this is the sample form that we're giving you here. This is no specific thing that you have to do or that you try to emulate, but just an example of what you might do within your own program. So, and the objectives, what strategies will be implemented in our program to improve student performance pertaining to the priority need? Be specific. So the examples there are like we'll implement blended learning strategies in addition to utilize software programs such as, and it gives you a couple of examples there. All teachers will incorporate reading across the curriculum. So there can be all kinds of different strategies that you utilize. And you may find as you go through the year that some of those don't work as well as others. And that's when the I&I checks come in, because sometimes we have to alter things based on our student population, based on the resources that we have. Maybe you find another reading program, if you're doing reading, that is just wonderful that you didn't have when you wrote this plan. So realize that, you know, sometimes things have to change based on what goes on in your school year. Okay, Angie, you want to finish up?
Measuring the objectives, in other words, how well did we do? What data will show that we're implementing successful objectives to reach the goal? What data will show improvements in student performance? So, okay, you had this goal, you told us how you were going to get there. So how are you going to view the data at the end to know if you were successful? So the example here is intermittent or post-formative and summative assessments will show growth toward grade level for each student. Or the other goal, teacher lesson plans and student MTSS plans will show how the objectives are being incorporated and followed when reviewed every 2 weeks. So, you know, just how are you measuring it? How do you know if you were successful or not? So we hope, and again, if you have questions about this document, please feel free to reach out. But we hoped that this streamlined process would be, you know, a benefit to you all, and it just makes a little more sense. What we're looking for is a little clearer. And Peggy referenced the implementation and impact check. You know, that is so important when you measure your objectives and to look back and to see if you did what you did, or to see if maybe you need to seek out a new or a different strategy in order to reach those goals. Peggy and I talked together and we were discussing both the program improvement plan and the implementation and impact check. And that implementation and impact check is another area we would like to look at to see if we could streamline that as well. But hopefully with this new example and new format, Peggy and I are looking forward to some really good program improvement plans for next year that will be very impactful for our students and their success.
Does anyone have any questions about anything?
Is the new form linked on the website or is it out yet?
Cindy?
I don't know if it's on the website yet, but this will be the form that goes out with the MOA. And yes, we will have it on the website at some point. I just don't know if it's not there yet.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll have the example as well so that you can go back and look. It won't just be the blank form, but the example.
And I want to make a comment as part of this being the MOA process. One of the things that we looked at was the fact some of our programs, when we visit them or we're reviewing the MOA document, will have the same exact goal every year. And that may happen with our kids and with our programs that you may need to work on reading every year, but you shouldn't be doing the same strategy every year. The strategy should change because if it didn't work in this school year, it's not going to work in the next school year. So let's change that up and have something different on it. And it's just all of us acting in good faith of saying, this is what we see that our data tells us that we need to work on this school year. And in this school year, this is how we're going to approach that. And we may have to tweak it as we go along, but at least everybody knows that everybody's looking at this and updating it. And you're giving an effort in saying, this is what we're going to work on this school year. It's not something that I did 5 years ago and it's another requirement that I'm sending to SACSAA. Because we don't ever want anything that we're doing just be something that gives you more work. We want benefits for you and your program and for us. So I just wanted to add that as part of us looking at it as part of the MOA process too.
And Sherry, I totally agree with you on the aspect of, you might have the same program improvement plan. I mean, the goal every year, because let's face it, the majority of our kids come to us deficient in the areas of reading and math. But I think where the intentionality has to come in is when you're planning your strategies or your objectives and how you're going to get the students to a better place. So really, I just wanted to echo that and with you and just kind of provide some more support for your statement.
Thank you.
If no one has any further questions, we'll turn it back to Ronnie.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate that. And I think you guys are right. So I won't reiterate all of that, but this is a critical part of making sure we have student success. And that's really the bottom line. We want to make sure our students are as successful as possible as they can be and to provide them with all the supports that we can to ensure that that happens. So thank you for all of your work in doing this every year. We know that it's a big ask, but we know it's part of our process for all of us to continually improve. So we appreciate your support in doing that. We'll move right along into our next session. I think Heather Moss and Jeremy are going to share with us some information about enrolling and transitioning students between programs so we can streamline that a little bit. So Heather, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, we don't have a whole lot because I know we've had lots of trainings about records and enrolling students, but we still have issues from county to county, and I know going into Jefferson County even, of students not being enrolled in a timely fashion because people are waiting on records. That's not allowable. So, I mean, no matter what your district says, oh, we got to figure out what school they're going to go to, or if they need to be an alternative school, we really shouldn't. If a kid shows up in our school, we should be enrolling them. Or the only difference is, and I'm not as well versed on this, maybe Shannon might be able to explain it better, is I know with the DJJ detention centers, we are doing a transition. I don't know what else to call it. They're, as kids come in, because they may only be there for a couple of days, they're doing their transition packet. So we did talk about that. How will that impact attendance and whatnot? But it doesn't make sense to enroll a kid that, say in Jefferson, we get from Adair because they got to go to court and they're going right back to Adair, right? So that's some of the reasoning for that. And I know with DJJ, they have paperwork that they're going to work on during that transition period. And then when they come back from court, we either enroll them or they go back to where they were. So I guess we just wanted to make sure, were there any questions or concerns about that? Any issues that people are having in other counties or, county to county, and how we can better improve that process? Because I know we had a kid leave one of our DC or hospital facilities that couldn't get into the alternative school in the district they were from. And it's like, okay, we shouldn't be having kids sitting waiting for days and weeks because we don't have the paperwork. I guess just open to any questions, comments, concerns. Danielle.
We also,
Go ahead.
we also have some counties that make up rules as far as sending records. They will not send them. They send them through the mail. So by the time we get the records for a kid that has come through the mail, if we receive it at all, the kid is probably gone. And I don't know of any KDE regulations where it says that they can only mail records. And this is one of our larger counties. I wanted to get some clarification on that.
We all should be using IC, right? And requesting records through IC, because I still have people that will fax something. It's like, you're supposed to request an IC. So we should be sharing records in IC. That's part of why they had the records training.
Right. And then there's some records that are not in IC that they refuse to send. Well, it's only one of the larger counties, and it's not Fayette and it's not Jefferson, that only mail you records. And it's a district policy. So I just wanted to know if there was any KDE regulations on where they cannot scan an email or fax. Is it just regular mail that they have to send things?
I'll just chime in. I'm not aware of any regulation from KDE or anywhere else that would say that that's the only allowable way. However, in Kentucky, as you all know, we are a local district controlled state. And so district policy can often adopt policies that go beyond what the scope and requirement that the state may have. The state, for our purposes and for me, we have invested significant funds into an infinite campus student information management system. And it is our position and our recommendation that all of our districts use that. That's what it's there for. Our goal is for our students to be seamlessly transitioned from one program to another, because we know it's a very transient population. And we also know that with every transition that a student experiences, they have significant negative academic impacts. And we do not want to exacerbate that any by delaying the process for enrollment in a new program so that they can continue receiving a free and appropriate public education that they are legally entitled to.
That's one of the things that I've seen at least 3 different times in the last 6 months, where I'll have a county where a kid is placed out of Daviess County and maybe placed across the state in a foster care, and primarily foster care. It's not necessarily, if they're a group home, they usually have a relationship with the school system. But if it's a private foster, a lot of times, or even if they are just moving out of your program and they're going somewhere else, a lot of times I'm finding counties that want to call me and just say, hey, what can you tell us about these kids? Remember, that's one thing, without a records release, you probably shouldn't be saying anything. It'd be nice to absolutely know that this is truly the guidance counselor from whatever high school, but I'm finding that they want to wait and make a decision on where they place them based off what you tell them. Well, that's not right. I mean, if I say a kid's coming from Owensboro day treatment at DJJ facility, they automatically assume my kid has charges and they already have, these issues and that issues. And they may, but they also may not be, because we take kids from DCPS placement as well. So, my suggestion, and you guys chime in if you disagree, but my suggestion is to always require a records request NIC, 1, before you'll say anything to that district. But 2, also make sure you get the information so that you can follow up. I had to follow up with the district 5 times on the last student in this case, and it took her 2 weeks to get enrolled in the local school district in the foster home she was in, and that was just ridiculous because they hadn't made a decision on where they wanted to place her. And that's happened, like I said, at least 3 times in the last few months. So has anybody else kind of experiencing that?
Jeremy, I just want to add real quick, Danielle, if you'll email me the district that you're having issue with about that, till I can speak to some of the people that I worked with at KDE. And Ronnie was exactly right. As far as it's our student information, all districts are required to use that student information system. They have data standards as to how that process works. And anytime that somebody circumvents that, then that's when you have a break in students' records, and we just don't want that to happen, because again, just like someone else said earlier, our students are so transient. We want their records to be intact. We want their records to follow them wherever they go. And if you have people that are not following that process, there will be a break in records, and then you've got to try to scramble and get everything together. That could have been a very easy process versus a very difficult process. So just know that we're here to help in any way we can with that process. And I don't care at all to reach out to some folks at KDE to see, how can we make this easier for our programs. So.
Hey, one other thing that I have noticed as of late, especially if the kid's never been enrolled in our district, is a lack of social security number in their IC census people tab. That's especially for high school students, that's extremely important if you can track that down, because that is linked to their KEYS money. Their Kia account is linked to their social security number. It's not the student information number. So if they don't have a social in there, there's a chance that without some special stuff done from the district level, that their KEYS money is not going to follow them. So and they may not even earn it, even though they did well for you in the program. So please always check that census and make sure that their social got in. So that when you post transcript grades at the end of the year, Kia will be able to kind of have their account ready to go for post-secondary.
Now, Jerry, some parents are very reluctant to give you their social security number. So that does factor in. That's one of those things that
I would have that conversation though with that parent, so they understand the money.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't need to be verbal. You need to have a copy of the social security card. Don't just go off of what they tell you.
Yeah.
And I don't even think we collect social security numbers in JCPS anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of districts don't.
Yeah. The other thing about that is if it's an issue with JCPS, please reach out to me, because I'm going through our ADPP now, because we have the same problem going from our programs to our own Jefferson County schools. So I know that people need time to determine a placement, but we really can't keep kids out of school while you're trying to figure out where they go. They should be allowed to enroll in school, and then you have that meeting and maybe they move. I don't know. It's kind of disheartening, especially if we're going from alternative school to alternative school. This shouldn't be an issue. I know most of us, we don't have a say. Whoever shows up based off the treatment partner, but just making sure that we are all supporting each other. And I just want to put that out there. I know Jefferson County does the same thing, and I'm working on how to figure that out to make it better for our kids. And then Justin had mentioned in the chat, just a reminder, I know we talked about this before, anything that isn't already in Infinite Campus, you can upload to the ILPA tab. And I know we've had trainings on that before. And then Chris, he was saying that, is it more about what a kid has done, or not so much about what a kid has done, but about what interventions have been implemented and which ones worked. This conversation helps with student transitions and appropriate placement. I agree that making assumptions about behavioral history can be detrimental. So I agree with all this, but, and maybe it's just because I don't completely understand the smaller counties either, but like, we still have to enroll them. And then that conversation comes. So any kids from Jefferson County, if you reach out to me, or I'll share our JCPS, it should be in our SACSAA directory too, who's in charge at each location. Reach out. We want to support each other, like teacher to teacher, even of like, these are the things we did that work. So just keeping those open lines of communication across the state.
So would it be possible for like kids that are committed to DJJ, and we have Service Burnside Group Home, and so we know what county that student's going to when they have their DJJ transition meeting? Who would we need to invite to that meeting from the school system, so they know this kid's coming and they can be working on that placement for 2 weeks before the kid gets home?
I think that's a good idea. Would you just look for like who's over that DJJ program in our SACSAA directory?
But like in Jefferson County, there's so many, that's
Oh,
the county we have the
one
biggest.
DJJ though. We only have one DJJ program. So if they're going to a DJJ program, it
But
would be.
we don't know where they're going. They get to Jefferson
Oh.
County and they have to have a meeting with central office, and then they have to have another meeting to decide where to go. If we knew who to invite to that meeting, and we can get them whatever they need so that kids don't wait, because we've had kids in Jefferson County wait up to a month to get in school once they get back home.
That should not happen. So I guess initially, if you want to add me on there, and I'll get with student relations and find out who they would want to be invited from Jefferson County. Because I agree that would speed up the process, I would hope.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree with everyone. And Warren County is not the best at this as well. But I did have a great example of Middlesboro Group Home contacting our DJJ worker contacting the school. And we were able to have his transition meeting online with mom and DCPS and DJJ. And I have a date that I know when he's coming into town, so we can quickly move him back into the program as a transition student with a day treatment. That would be ideal if we all could really work on getting some of that established. But I also know that there's some times where you don't know when a kid is leaving the program, and that causes a lot of issues on placement and those type of things.
Thanks for sharing something positive too that worked, because there are a lot of good things going on. I just want to, and from Jefferson County, like what I can do to help that be better, because what Tammy said, that just should not be happening. So anything like that, we just need to reach out to each other.
Yeah, does anybody, and this is just something that I think we've always done at a once-a day treatment, I'm not sure. Does anybody have transition meetings with DPPs, or especially if a kid's going to stay local, where you kind of, they're getting ready to exit your program, and then you kind of have conversations with the school system about, where you hope and why you hope they may be placed at a certain spot. We've had some success in Davis County having those meetings to kind of advocate for kids to maybe go back to a regular ed that maybe wouldn't have gotten the chance otherwise, just based off the transition. And we've had, 2 or 3 graduates in the last 5 years that went back to the regular high school. We were able to kind of talk about creating opportunities, like whether that be a sports team or some kind of mentor that automatically they know a person. So, potentially, they would be able to meet with that mentor at your facility, especially if they're staying local, so that they can have a face, because you don't want them going back, especially some of them are gone for a year, sometimes a little more, not having, a person to go to, or a principal to know. And so that's something that has been a good transitional thing for us. We have it really good with Davis County, and we're getting better at it with OPS. So that when you start thinking about transitions, remember it's not just records. It's that whole created, that transition team. Like I see a lot of y'all posting that I love. If you don't have something like that, you might think about what are the transitional pieces we need for those that are going back to school district, and then what are the transitional pieces we need for those that are going to be entering the job market post-secondary. Have we connected them with voc rehab? Have we brought them on a tour of the local KCTC? That's something that we do to get them with programs. Have we filled out an application so they're already accepted when they get their GED, so they're already accepted in KCTC, so maybe they could go ahead and connect with like a work ready program. That's some things that we've done in the past 4 or 5 years, that we've had 3 or 4 students go on to a completely free education, working on a trade. We were able to work with an admissions counselor at U of L that I was friends with, that was able to kind of, we couldn't necessarily bring the kid there, but we were able to have virtual meetings so the kid knew who it was, so that we could say, hey, we think this kiddo would be great, but they need to be part of a TRIO program. So a TRIO program is for kids that are, at risk, first time college students, come out of, they just don't have the supports that every other kid has. And a TRIO program is meant to be like a mentoring program on a college campus that they can be part of. A lot of times they'll have snacks and food. It's just a place for them to go because they are first generation or possibly completely on their own, and they need to have that adult on campus where they can say, hey, how do I get help with this? And then they'll kind of teach them how to advocate for themselves. So just some thoughts, when you start talking about transitions outside of records.
And I'm not sure if you're paying attention to the comment in the chat section over on the side, but we have some really good suggestions over there of examples where things are going really well in school districts, both from Dana and Bobby, who are have really good systems that they've established within their districts that could be models for others who are on here today and looking to learn about how to improve this for all of our students.
And are those district transition teams or like your program transition team? Looks like it might be both.
I think it looks like district when we're talking about it here, because they have district representatives who are on those teams, including the DPPs, mental health specialists, and then representatives from their district where they are working. So those are primarily in district transition programs that they work with. But they also have, if you look at Dana's comments, a regional facility that serves more than one district. And so they have those with not just the Warren County, but around that as well. But I think that is much easier for our programs that have a very specific targeted population that they work with, like our day programs, for example, where, they serve their county and maybe 1 or 2 counties around them. That's much easier to kind of coordinate than some of our programs where we serve kids who are statewide, especially when I think about, the all girls facility up in Newport and what that looks like. When we have kids who are from potentially every different county across the Commonwealth coming to one facility and then transitioning back out, both coming in, going back out to court, then coming back. I mean, there's a lot of movement of students within a very short period of time. And that seems like a much more cumbersome program to be able to coordinate when you're working with so many different districts and trying to facilitate that.
I like what Tammy said, the transition packet's nice. I'll have basically a one pager where it has the name of the person, their phone number, email, my work cell phone number in case they get stuck in a situation like we were talking about where they can't get enrolled, just so they can carry with them a copy of their transcript and a transitional page that has numbers and names and hopefully somebody they've met before they leave where they can contact us. So I thought that's a good idea, Tammy, too. The packet's very helpful.
I think that's all we had, Ronnie, unless somebody has any other questions.
Great. Thank you for that conversation. I think we still have a whole lot of work to do here. And again, it's one of those situations where we have such a diverse programming and diverse districts that respond in different ways. And we have some that are very focused on transition, especially our Title I identified schools that work specifically with Chena and others at the Title I office at DJJ, have a big focus on transition and what that looks like. But we have to keep that in mind for all of our programs, not just those that are specifically identified as those Title I. We have others, and all of our kids are very transient. They're moving a lot, not just between our programs based on their needs, but also with traditional districts and with, other districts that are not part of our network, right? So we're only in 48 school districts. And that means that we have 140, 130 other districts out there who are not as familiar with our kids, who don't work with us in the same way. And so we have to make sure that we're also building relationships with those districts so that our students can transition more easily back to those programs as well. Thank you all for a very robust conversation about that. Before we transition off, I do just want to take just 1 second to recognize Paul McKenzie and our team at Ramey Estep High School and our Home for Children in Boyd County. They have done an exceptional job over the years and have really been what I often consider a best practice program and have been routinely identified by the Department of Education as an alternative program of distinction. And we just have been notified in the last little bit that the board of directors of Ramey Estep Home for Children have decided to transition away from serving children and youth to a more community-based model where they won't have residential students on their campus. And so after what seems like maybe 100 years of service to children and youth of Kentucky in a residential setting, they're going to be transitioning away from that in the coming weeks. And so I just want to take an opportunity to thank Paul and his team and all of the folks who have been at Ramey Estep over the years for their service to state agency children. I think that they've done an exceptional job, and we've always been proud of the partnership we've had with them. And so thank you, Paul, and your team for all of your work. We don't know what the future will hold for the program, but we know that there will be a continued partnership with the school district there. So we thank you all for your work and appreciate all you've done. So thank you guys for that. Any other questions that you all have that we didn't talk about? So I'll just say, as we're transitioning off of this, we talk about transition. One of the things I just want to also say is that we have 6 programs that have been identified by the Kentucky Department of Education for special education audits. I think our first one is starting on Monday. I think that is Monday's one is with Lucinda in McCracken County. So I just want to also wish you all good luck as you move through that process in the coming weeks. It'll be over the next 5 to 6 weeks. We'll have visits with those 6 identified programs. They've all been notified. But as we've talked about many times in our SACSAA meetings, including our in-person meetings, where Clark County came and presented with us last fall about what their experience was like and how they worked through that process, just keep these folks and the students that they serve in your thoughts as they move through this process in the next couple of weeks. And we wish you the best in that process. Thank everybody for being here today. We are going to get out a little bit early. I'm excited about that. I know you are. As Mark said earlier, there has been an emergency state of emergency declared by the governor related to forecasted weather that we anticipate moving through the Kentucky region this afternoon. So if you are in school with students, please take appropriate precautions for that. And for those of you who are home, keep your eyes and ears open and be sure to take appropriate action to protect yourself and your family. And we thank you guys so much for being here. A quick reminder that you do have a link over in your chat that you have your ELA certificates are in the handout folder. So you can go ahead and click on that Google Drive link in the chat before we end our meeting. You'll be able to print all of that out and have that with you so that you can demonstrate your ELA credits for today. And again, we appreciate everybody so much for being here, and we wish you continued success as we can move toward a quick end of the semester. It is happening too fast for me, but thank you all so much for being here.
Good? Think we're good?
We're good. Bye, y'all.
Ronnie, are you still on there?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my gosh.